In the Factor follow-up segment tonight, the FBI has asked the media in Seattle to help them identify two possible terror suspects by releasing photos of the men. One local paper has refused to do that. The men were apparently spotted exhibiting unusual behavior on ferries in the area up to 6 times in recent weeks. Their ethnic origin is unknown, but now leaders in the Muslim community are upset over the tactics used by the FBI. Joining us now from Washington, Hussein Ibish, Executive Director of the Foundation for Arab American Leadership. Mr. Ibish, you've got the FBI. For several weeks, they tried to find these men, identify them. The men were not photographed by just any passerby. They were photographed by ferry employees who were worried. These are people who work day in and day out on these ships. They should know what constitutes suspicious behavior and not. What is the problem with asking citizens who, of course, federal officials are always saying should be vigilant, to help them out?
Well, there isn't a problem with that at all, and I'm not even sure there's particularly a problem with releasing their photographs, although obviously there's an argument.
Concession,
well,
Mr. Ibish.
But no, it's not a concession at all. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but here's the thing. I think it could have been handled better. I talked to several people in the Arab American community in Seattle today, and what they're concerned with is the way it was handled, both in terms of relationships between the community and local FBI and law enforcement, which have been good until now, and also the way in which it hasn't really been explained to the public, or rather the kind of misperception the public might have gotten. However, I think if this could have simply have been handled slightly better, that it really wouldn't have been that big a deal. And really, this is about both sides working together to maintain good working relationships between the Arab American and Muslim communities on the one hand, the FBI on the other hand, and that's in everybody's interest.
Well, local Muslim groups in Seattle are unhappy and, quote-unquote, resentful, is how the local papers put it, because they weren't asked about it.
But they didn't say that,
because they weren't asked about it first. So you're saying, you're maintaining to me, with a straight face, that if the feds had gone to these groups first and said, hey, we're going to be releasing these pictures, hope you're okay with that.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
You know, do a little hand-holding.
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Okay,
no,
well, then
no.
how exactly, let me ask the question first before you answer it. How exactly would have a better way to handle it been?
Well, I mean, there could have been some kind of discussion. I'm certainly not saying the FBI has to ask anybody's permission before going to the public. But I mean, I do think some kind of better communication would have been preferable. There are advisory groups; they could have been used. There was a meeting a couple of days before in Seattle between Arab American leaders and FBI people. The FBI might have given some kind of background, some kind of maybe. I mean, it depends really on how they want to handle it. But I have to hold on. Wait, let me finish answering the question. The point is that there is no question that the way it was handled has ruffled feathers, and ruffled feathers are not helping anybody. And by the way, the fact that the Post-Intelligencer didn't want to print the picture and hasn't printed the picture means that it's not just the local Arab Americans and Muslims who have concerns, but a lot of other people too.
Well, I would argue, Mr. Ibish, that the FBI handled it exactly the right way, because you are making an assumption that the FBI did not make and simply did not make explicitly, which is what the religion and what the race or ethnicity of these men were.
I'm not making that assumption at all.
Yes, well, these Muslim groups are.
I don't think so. I think what they're
complaining
saying
about being profiled.
What they're saying is that the public might be given the impression that these people were suspicious because of their appearance, and I think the FBI could have done more, and the police, the law enforcement,
could have done more. They made it explicitly clear that they had no idea whether or not what they did was innocent or not. They just wanted to talk with them.
Right. After the controversy came up, they did, but at first they didn't. That's one of the ways in which this wasn't handled very well. If you believe that it's important for those communities to have good working relationship with law enforcement and vice versa, then I think both sides could have handled it better. And I don't think you can say that either group in this case handled things perfectly, frankly, because the relations are strained now. I mean, you could say it if you want, but I think it's silly.
Well, I'm glad to see that you didn't invoke the Islamophobia card here for once, because
think it is.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. The feds actually stopped a white Seattle Times photographer, so this has nothing to do with race at all. And we hope those men come forward. Mr. Ibish, thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you very much.
Coming up, our favorite Policing the Press moments. Bernie